shaka talk. And him come down, turn the back. Because me sweeter than the water when I come.
We're gonna give a little bit since we get any people come online.
The island, the mountain, and the cooler, the breeze.
You notice she got love. She's in a shot. Yes.
We're trying to take this without her, but I guess she wants to make her presence be known.
Mm-hmm. We're going to give it a start. Mm-hmm. Okay. It's grooving right now.
A lot of people are at work right now. Or running errands, I don't know. It's about to be lunchtime. It might be lunchtime for some people. You want to get into this?
Okay. All right.
Pause that real quick. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So pretty much it's Rael, and again it's
Hathor, second L.
Okay. And so the topic is how slavery has affected Black marriages and choosing a mate. And I think that when we look at society within itself, and we need to start looking at, of course, Childish Gambino, what he put out there definitely sparked a lot of controversy.
Right.
And, you know, this is how we kind of came to this subject of, even though we look at the violence and we still look at how the chaos, we still need to look at how do we repair, you know, our situation. You know, where do we begin? You know, how does it start? And then also we need to look back at it.
Well, we going back to Childish Gambino. Everybody was impressed about the video, and it's just like, oh, how woke is he? He's woke. He's woke. But then, of course, dun dun dun, we find out that he has a white wife or a white baby mama, whatever, and it of course is hurting Black women's feelings. So it's this whole thing of, you know, Childish Gambino was a nerd. The Black woman didn't want him. And then now the Black women are coming back and saying, oh, I like nerds. I wrote this on somebody else's post. I looked up his birthday because I like to know numerology and what people are about through their birthday. We do that as readings, me and Rael, for some time now. Anyway, I go to it, and he was born in 1983. So he was born a year after me. Yeah, I'm telling my age. So he was born a year after me. And I know that age, or that time, that year, the 80s babies, when we came into the 90s, it was the music that was enforcing us to pick the roughneck. Mm-hmm. Gotta have a roughneck. I gotta have a soldier. I gotta have the thug passion with, you know, on the West Coast. It was all about having a gangster, somebody who was quote unquote alpha male. In our eyes, what 90s and 80s had it was more of the thug, the rough guy, the alpha male. That's what we seen as the alpha male, the DMX, you know, those guys that you felt like was taking control. I even seen some videos where I think it was over in London where they said, we don't want the good boy, we want the roughneck. We want, like, if I say something, he can put me in check.
And just to kind of add on to that, it's just like you've seen the story of, they always show the little girl or an old boy, and they show you the dial, and they always say which dial is you know, evil, or which one is bad, and they have the black dial and the white dial. And so, you know, we've seen that experiment where, you know, all the children pretty much, you know, they chose the black dial, and I feel like that's the kind of conditioning that our music and just the depiction of the Black male, when you look at our music and even our heroes, because, you know, that idea of being able to change the image of man is also about what women are attracted to. You know, that whole alpha male. Now, what I do want people to know is that, you know, in the old days, the warrior was something, you know, that the woman wanted, you know, just because, you know, even in the days of where they were gladiators, the women, you know, were still oohing and ahhing over those type of figures, you know, and then that was in a day and age where survival and living and big men and things like that was very attractive, because survival was you know, a thing, you know.
It was
more
brute than intelligence.
You know, it was more brute and intelligence in that age. And so now we're moving into an age where brute and all that physicalness is starting to kind of be pushed to the side. So now when you look at, how in the 80s and 90s where we had the Roughnecks and the OPP and, NWA, we kind of start to go even into Master P, that whole No Limit 1990 movement of ghetto-ness. That whole imagery really changed the face of how we kind of looked at each other, because if you think about it, those are the times when New Orleans was the murder capital of the world. And if you think about it, that music, that ghetto music, all that was being pumped in that area. So it's like
now it's trap music.
Now it's trap music, and so it's the same idea there, where the trap is, as a race, women are not going to ever be able to understand that this is a war that's bigger than man itself. It's like we're playing a war where these people who are our oppressors understand that as long as we are more intelligent than our prey, then we have a chance to control them. But whenever these people become intelligent, then we can no longer control them. And so that's the idea that when you have somebody who's stirring the pot, right? The witch that's stirring the pot, we all in the pot. We all in this motherfucker like, damn, shit. And they throw a little bit more ghetto-ness in it, a little bit more hoochie mama in the thought, and they keep stirring the pot. And so we have to eventually know as a people that we got to somehow be still. So when they try to go stir us and move us, that damn spoon ain't moving too hard, and they're gonna get tired before we get tired.
Exactly. Let's go back to how this all happened, how the Black family has been dismantled. And I think that's the biggest thing that needs to happen for the Black community to unify and actually grow and progress into being unified and changing things. One thing on our travels and our journey was that we knew that choosing the right mate, family is a big thing. The church in the Black community is a big thing, and the schools are the big thing. Mm-hmm. But let's go back to slavery. When the Black family was being put together, white people were putting us together just by form. They weren't putting us together by consciousness or spirituality. They were putting us together of making the ultimate man or woman, making us. They wanted the alpha male, and the alpha male was usually strong and big, and then they wanted the woman who, was healthy and could carry the strong alpha man's children. And then he would be mated around like a dog. So the breeding was done like you were animals. And this one and this one look good, mm-hmm. So let's mesh them together.
There was no intelligence in that.
No intelligence with what these white people were doing as they were mating us together. We knew that probably back in Africa, or even the Black people, and I'm going to say this, the Black people that were here, for that ran an ancestral that we knew how to choose from looking at numbers, from looking at different things. There was arranged marriages and everything else because we knew how to look at each other.
Mm-hmm. And so, that's the idea that, we have to start looking at the ancient practices. This is what's going to be the glue to really repairing us and really, we may not be able to fix the past, but we can have a fresh start each day, and as long as we understand that the basic tools to that, when we do put together a union, right, that it's a harmonious union. It's not something that is put together by all the material that's of what's been known in this reality or what the relationship experience to this point, but it's also looking throughout time and to see exactly, does that relationship have a chance, what type of child it could bear, if these two people will work naturally as far as being a harmonious couple. And that's what we're missing, is that when we compare that intelligence, think about that, that's layers upon layers upon layers that you're trying to intelligently mate with someone, to see if you have a woman who's artistic and she has a way of creating things, and she may be all working with her heart. Maybe you may find someone with intelligence, or maybe you may have someone who doesn't have as much strength, and she may be looking for someone bigger, or blah 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 blah. But you kind of get the point. It just can't be something done the physicalness of the relationship. It has to be something that's matched in heaven, you know. And when you look at the prayer, you know, it's the art that's created in heaven. And so you would think that as long as we figure out, okay, whatever that art is, you know, that blueprint that's being designed for our relationship to be harmonious, that's something that we have to, you know, we have as a community, and you know, the community should have a say so. And when you look at marriages now, you know, when the priest is marrying someone, the community does have a say so in the relationship.
Yeah.
And so I just feel like it's being done the incorrect way. Is that when the community or the people stand up and say, "Hey, I have a right," they should not be married. You know, we should have a lot of priests and a lot of people in play who really looked at the relationship to see where it could go.
Families need to start talking to families, and Black families need to start seeing who we are. But going back to actually a time during the 50s, 60s, 70s, you seen the families were much stronger. That's when they were doing the love songs, and they were singing those songs that were directed towards the women, of romancing them. And even in the 70s and the 50s and the 60s, you've seen a more feminine side to the Black man, where it wasn't as hard as, I gotta be alpha. You had the Marvin Gaye, you had Teddy Pendergrass, you had all these type of people that were.
You had groups, you even had the Temptations, and
even the women were singing love songs. So it was a major factor in that we actually move with the music. Black people are soulful, the ka. So when we hear music, that helps us to understand our surroundings, who we are,
even heal ourselves.
It projects the vibration to how we are. This little girl biting on my necklace. Mm-hmm. So when that moved out of that, when 80s came, the rap, I'm not going to try to say that rap is horrible, but rap did it
depicted a lesser form of equality of a man. You know, and so instead of seeing men dealing with officers, we had men running from cops. And guess what? Everybody started running from cops. Just like NWA, you saw them in the videos running from cops, and we were running from cops in real life, right? But instead, if you would have saw certain people dealing with cops or dealing with the public in a respectable way that really was more of an activist way, then you would see the image of man take on exactly the projection of what they're seeing on the screen. So we have to start understanding that the deterioration of the Black, you know, marriage has started with the depictions, negative depictions over time. Mm-hmm. All right, that has been the mental program, and if you think about it, you know, people say, "Oh, we're so used to seeing this, so used to seeing it." It becomes norm. But it becomes a norm. It is the programming that you normally think life is, and so it's the funny thing is that when you travel and you go to certain places yourself, you tend to find out that it's not exactly the way they showed it on TV. It's not all that violent, or it's not all this, or it's not all that. I'm sure some places are, but not all of them, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like we have to be very careful at what we're seeing and what we're educating our people. But it's just like this: is if you were to look at, you know, a tree, all right, becoming itself, where could it go wrong? All right. You would say at the initial planting that if you were to plant that seed somewhere else, right, the condition of that tree becoming itself, it would be different. And so that's what I kind of look at Black marriages, that without that, you know, if we could erase all of that information, all right, and we plant that seed, all right, which is that relationship, but you plant it in purity, all right, which is that you understand that all the crud and all the doo-doo of life that has been on that shit, right? You chipped it off, and then you actually took it to someone else who could tell you exactly what this seed would bear. You know exactly what the seed was before you planted it in the ground, right? That's what the Black marriage is, and that we cannot take it lightly where, you know, we are mating like brutes. We're mating because we are only dealing with people on a third dimensional level where it's just maybe they're female, or they got a nice body, or, you know, that they have money, mm-hmm. or, you know, all these different aspects.
Looking for all the wrong things, basically.
It does what I'm saying. If you just look at those things, it doesn't tell you the future. And even if you live with that person, I don't know, for a year, all right, and you don't know, all you know is the experience that you have with that person. You try to, project out a little bit further, but you ain't got no information than what the experience of that person.
You were basically a blind man in the dark, and love is definitely a gamble, and you don't know what you're getting into. And I think the solutions that we actually provide, and I think your children should understand and be taught once they start developing relationships and dating, is that they need to look at the consciousness. And how you can do those things is by looking at the numerology of each other's numbers of when you were born, looking at the astrology of how you match up Eastern and Western astrology. You can do to look at each other and see what's going on. And then we do a special thing called the all-seeing eye,
or facial
recognition, because all-seeing eye usually scares people.
People think it's a religion.
But what we do is that we look at people and we match them up according to their face, their consciousness, and the sexual compatibility. And we do provide those services. So
then when you look at astrology,
you can get in contact with us if you would like to get the actual reading done. You can inbox us here on our thing, or you can inbox us separately on Hathor Segment or Rael.
And so that's just the idea, is that when you are matchmaking, we have to use the art that was created in heaven. And so that's all those aspects that when we look at facial recognition or facial characteristics, we look at birthdays, right? We also look at numerology and palmistry. Palmistry actually has some with some dibbling and dabbling in that, and that's something I'm working on behind the screens. But you start to realize that when you have all this art, that was created in heaven, that's really here on your face and on your hands and on your body for you to see and read. All you have to do is seek it. You can get answers.
You come with a blueprint.
You come with a blueprint.
And your blueprint matches somebody else's. And even how it goes, that you can have a twin flame, you can have a soulmate. We're able to identify that. You should be able to identify that if you're dealing with a twin flame, a soulmate. There's so many things that are actually holding back better marriages, because people don't understand what you attract is what you are is what you attract. And once you get with this man or woman, your DNA is mixing together, and it's making this child. And this child could be either, if you get a dumb nigga, you might produce a dumb nigga. If you get an intelligent man, you probably will, produce an intelligent child.
And that's what we have to understand, is you have to get it into the science of evolution. Right? Evolution is not something that just, hey, I was sitting there and I ascended. right? No. It's something that somebody was cultivating. If they were an arrow man and they shot this and they kept doing it, somehow they got intimate and they practiced over and over and over and over. It became spiritual. They started getting more information. They started understanding how the wind affected where the arrow flew. They started understanding all the very details about being someone who shoots a bow and arrow.
Even if you don't have a man or a woman, you should still be knowing exactly what type of mate to choose.
So it's just like when you're shooting that bow and arrow, all right, and that bow is going off, you hitting that target is all dependent upon you understanding all the variables of how that arrow is going to fly. And so that's just what it is that when we choose potential mates, right, we got to see exactly where the arrow is going to fly. We have to know exactly, with how much, intensity, how much, how is this thing going to go if I pull back and let go? Because that's what that relationship is that when you do pull back and you decide to give with somebody and let go, now you guys are off orbiting to a whole reality where you do not understand the possibilities. But the idea is that if you can gain 60% of the fight, or understand exactly where 60%,
you have a better chance.
If you can gain, and this is how I'll compare it, and I'm gonna show you. This is the bow and arrow person, all right, and this is how you can get a good aim. Some people they'll start off a relationship and they'll actually know nothing about the person, so they'll get about this much pullback, because that darkness is that you got to understand. This pulling back is darkness. You got to go in the darkness, and that takes a little bit of strength and a little bit of resistance to be able to hold this and go into someone's past and deal with that. All right. So some people really jump into relationships with just a little bit of darkness, a little bit of pull. All right. All right. Or they got a little bit of information. All right. And so the idea is that the more and more information you get about a person, all right, the more and more information you get about a person, all right, right? You get more power and velocity so that when you do let go, you know exactly where the relationship is going to go.
Exactly.
Right? And so that's the idea of friction, is that the more knowledge and information and the more variables we have about a person, right, we will know what's going to go. And so the thing is like when we start relationships, we typically don't get that information. We usually have to grow up around a person or somebody, a friend, give some information. But now we're at a time where everyone's going to shift. There's going to be unexpected variables, all type of chaos.
You want to know the potential harmony. Are we compatible? So it's all about compatibility. Is all about the harmony. At the numbers, when we look at numbers and we compare them, if the numbers aren't matching and there's a lot of numbers that are not good matching up together, then usually the harmony won't be there. You usually have a set of rules of how you can bring more harmony. And you need to understand that with any mate that you're with. You make all these faces. But you need to understand the potential harmony. If it's low, if it's high, it's medium, how much harmony will the relationship have? And how can you build upon it to make it better? Every relationship has its problems with it. It may be that y'all need to live in separate places. It may be that you need to be in a structure, like y'all may need to work together to be able to get along. It could be so many things in which how you bring more harmony, but you need to know it. But if you don't know, hey, we should be learning together, or we should be learning something spiritual together, or you know, more than likely we met in high school, or we met when we were in school, or we will probably end up, your mate will probably be at work because you work better with somebody that's in work because you deal with more of structure. So it really depends. But if you don't know, you're just like I said, you're like a blind man in the dark, and you don't know the full potential of what a relationship could bring because you're just choosing off a form. You're choosing like back in slavery, where it just is form. It looks good. I possibly will make a certain child. There's even some women who date a man because of his skin color, because I want a lighter baby. Or, you know, with white women, they get darker men because they want a black baby. But anyway, that's going off the subject. It's just that people choose many different ways on how they choose, but it's usually form. It's not spiritual. It's not using awareness. And
that's the idea, is that the more and more that we are able to use the art that's created in heaven, all right? And there are people who are healers and people who do spiritual work who are here to guide you. You just got to choose the people who you can trust and people who you can, you know, who when you decide to say, all right, and it's just like a priest. You know, and that's what these people are. I mean, some people are like priests, but they decide not to be in a church. Right? That's what you got to understand, that they are real priests in the world, priests and priestesses. They're just not in the church.
And trust me, we've been doing this for years. We're good at it. Some people don't always listen to the advice that we give them, but we usually, people be like, oh, well, it didn't work out for me. And we're like, well, we told you the good and bad of this person. So it's really your choice. It's really not our fault if the relationship doesn't work out, because we give you an outline of rules and regulations of how the relationship can go, and then you go from there. It's like when you go to the dentist and the dental hygienist cleans your teeth. You do the rest at home. It's like 10% was done, and then 90% is done at home.
Now the cool thing is that each relationship that we do, you know, counsel or you know, help, you know, everyone has a chance at being together if, one, you know how to balance it. You know, if you know how to balance the variables and you understand your negative and positive charges or your triggers, you know, if you call it that, and then, you know, we would know exactly how to work if we know how to balance. But right, if you don't know how to balance, then what happens is you have to evolve your understanding of each other to the laws and understanding of singularity. Right, and so that's another class that we do offer. And it's for it's the all-seeing eye class. We're talking about this because, you know, it's teaching you all how to really evolve past the idea of form, but to really understand the idea of impulse. And impulse allows you that when you are really at that level of self-mastery, right, it means that you really have tamed your spirit, or, you know, tamed that wild, chaotic part about you, and you've tamed it down to the tick. So it's just like a car that used to have a hitch. You've grinded that hitch out because now you know exactly when it comes, and you know exactly what to do to make it smooth. So it's not, you know, such a bumpy ride when you're working with people.
You can learn the facial recognition, what we call the all-seeing eye, or we can give you you know, mate you or help you
or
with
help you,
compatibility and looking at the face and everything. You can pay for the reading, which is usually what? How much is it? 65. It's usually 65, where we go even through the astrology if necessary. We do the numerology, and then we compare the consciousness and sexuality, or you can learn it on your own and be. And that's what I highly recommend, is that you learn facial recognition for yourself, because again, me and Raul have been saying this for a long time, is that Facebook is already doing facial recognition.
Government, everyone else is already doing it.
The police, they're arresting people off of facial recognition. So are you better than the machine? I would hope that you would want to be better than the machine, because the system will control you if you don't know the system and know yourself better than the system. So why not? Because it was to help you did not bring monsters into your home, especially for black.
It's going to be a whole new form of prejudiceness, and that right now you think that when the hatred is something that is so deep, right? And eventually, when people get past the idea of color, right, it's going to be some type of form of prejudiceness that people will still hold on to. Right, so when you learn this, you got to be a neutralizer, that whenever you see ignorance come, you know exactly how to cut that shit in half. All right, so we're going to go ahead and leave with that. We're not going to talk too much about this issue, but we just wanted to have a general conversation about black marriage and how a way we can start repairing it.
I just want to say one last thing. A lot of times, I've heard people talking about slavery, where we came from, our origins. We all argue about that. We go in the past. But if we are going to bring up the past, let's bring up solutions. And that's why I said that when we were doing our outline for this talk, I was telling Rob, at the end or somewhere in between, we need to talk about solutions. Our solutions are that the people have to get more conscious, but we need leaders. We need people to be able to do this. And I know we can't do it alone, but we are available to help people who need that help. And that's the solution, is that we got to get more spiritual.
And all right, and if there's anyone who's out there, right, and you happen to see this video, you happen to be sitting on some finances, and you want to donate to two people who are trying to make a difference in the world.
A family,
and we've been doing this through poverty, through thick and thin. We've been trying to teach this consciousness that's for the future to our people. But if you do know anyone who has access to an abundance amount of funds that they want to help us start something great for our people and be a part of a legacy that's going to be built for all people, those people who really want to go and help, do the creator's work, this is a big key, right? So hit us up on our inbox, get a hold of us, let us know what you can do. But this is just us kind of talking, and we'll be doing more conversation and touching on more topics as this age comes, because right now, there has to be people out there still guiding and still talking as we go about the shift. So peace out. Y'all have a good evening.